Okay, let's kick things off with this quote. To have annual income of £20 per annum and spend £20 and sixpence is to be the most miserable of men.
Whereas to have an income of only £20 and spend but £19 and sixpence is to be the happiest of mortals.
Exactly. That contrast, it still hits home, doesn't it? And that's really why we're doing this deep dive today.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Today we're digging into, well, a fascinating source, P.T. Barnum's Golden Rules for Making Money from way back in the 19th century.
Now, you might think, okay, 19th century, how relevant can that be? But honestly, the insights on getting and maybe more importantly, keeping money are surprisingly timeless.
Totally. And our goal here is to, pull out the core wisdom for you, give you the actionable stuff without you having to read the whole thing, regardless of where you are financially right now.
We want to make it quick, digestible, but still really substantial.
So what are we covering? We'll get into what Barnum really meant by economy. It might not be what you think.
And choosing the right path, your vocation, avoiding debt. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah. Plus perseverance, integrity, and even advertising. Some of his advice is quite counterintuitive, actually.
It should be interesting. So
Yeah.
Barnum starts off suggesting that back in his day in the U.S., making money was, well, maybe easier than now.
Yeah, he mentions the available land, fewer people crowding into every profession. It paints a picture of like wide open opportunity.
Right. A different landscape.
Definitely different. But that core idea that opportunities are out there if you're willing to work for them, if you have the right mindset, that still feels very relevant today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The game board might look different, as you said, but the need for initiative, that hasn't changed.
But then he pivots pretty quickly. He says, okay, making it is one thing.
But keeping it, that's the real challenge. And this is where he brings in this concept of economy.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack economy because I think most people hear that and immediately think, extreme penny pinching, maybe being a bit mean.
Right. But Barnum pushes back on that hard. He explicitly says, economy is not meanness.
So what is it then, according to him?
It's actually quite simple, fundamentally. It's just making sure your income is consistently higher than your expenses. That's it.
Just that basic balance.
Exactly. And he uses that Mr. Macabre example from Dickens so effectively.
Oh, that's brilliant. Spending just that tiny bit extra leads to misery, while spending a tiny bit less brings happiness. It really drives the point home.
It does. It shows how critical that simple balance is. It's not about, obsessively saving cheese pairings and candle ends, as he puts it.
Right. He warns against that kind of thing, calling it mistaken economy, doesn't he? What's that about?
Yeah, that's where you focus on tiny savings but ignore bigger picture spending, like his examples.
The farmer's wife saving candle scraps but buying expensive ribbons.
Exactly. Or the businessman who saves scraps of paper but throws these huge, unaffordable parties. It's that classic penny wise and pound foolish trap.
We all see that, don't we? Maybe even do it ourselves sometimes. Obsess over a coupon while buying something big we don't really need. So how does he suggest cultivating real economy?
His method is pretty practical, actually. He says, look, just track your spending, write it all down,
Okay.
and then split it into two columns. Necessary comforts and luxuries.
Ah, the categorization.
Right. And he predicts most people will be, well, surprised at how big that luxuries column actually is once they see it laid out. It's about awareness, really. Rational awareness.
It sounds like a genuinely useful exercise, just seeing it in black and white. He also talks about social pressure, right? Quoting Franklin. It is the eyes of others and not our own eyes which ruin us.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge point. This pressure to keep up appearances, to have what others have, even if we can't afford it.
Like his examples of hiring a fancy carriage just to look good.
Or buying an imitation shawl because your neighbor has a real one. It's about that external validation driving bad financial choices.
It's a trap, isn't it? Spending money you don't have to project an image, which just undermines your actual security. Makes you think about our own spending today. Okay, so economy is the foundation. What comes next?
Next up is good health. He calls it the foundation of success and happiness. Pretty fundamental.
Can't argue with that. If you're always sick, it's hard to be productive or, frankly, happy.
Exactly. Your energy, your focus, it all suffers. And he gets specific, too. He talks about things like poor ventilation, using tobacco.
He even shares a story about his own struggles with tobacco, right? How quitting helped him think clear.
Yeah, he connects those physical habits directly to mental clarity and, ultimately, to financial success. It's all linked.
Okay, so health first. Then what?
Then, choosing the right vocation, the right career path for you.
This feels like maybe things have changed a bit since his time. Parents maybe don't dictate careers quite as much.
Perhaps not as directly, but his core message. Finding work that actually fits your natural talents, your genius as he calls it, that's still incredibly relevant.
Definitely. He uses himself as an example, saying he was terrible at mechanics.
Right. He knew forcing himself into something he wasn't suited for would just lead to frustration, lack of success. He saw people stuck in jobs where their real talents lay elsewhere.
So finding that alignment isn't just about being happier at work, it's actually strategic for making money too.
It gives you an edge. You're working with your strengths, not against them.
Makes sense. Work with the grain.
Okay, so health, vocation.
Mm-hmm.
What other strategic points does he make?
Location, location, location. But for your business?
Ah, right. The importance of where you set up shop.
He tells that story about the penny show guy in London who wasn't doing great,
Yeah.
but then moves to America where there was more opportunity for his specific thing, and he thrives.
So context matters.
Yeah.
You can be great, but in the wrong place.
Your potential might be capped. Then he moves on to something huge. Avoiding debt.
Oh, yeah. He seems really passionate about this one. He is. He calls debt a slavish position. Strong words. He basically begs young people starting out to just stay away from it.
And he uses that analogy, working for a dead horse.
Exactly. Paying for something that's already gone, already used up. It just holds you back.
Such a powerful image. But he does make a distinction about types of debt, doesn't he? It's not like all borrowing is bad.
Right. He separates using credit, strategically say, to buy something that will make you money.
Like equipment for a business.
Precisely. Versus going into debt just for, everyday living consumption. And he explains how interest is just relentless, working against you 24/7.
While you sleep.
While you sleep. And he brings in John Randolph's advice. Pay as you go. Keep it simple.
Seems obvious, but that pull of easy credit is strong. Okay, so avoid bad debt. What else? What builds wealth?
Perseverance. Sheer persistence. He calls it go-aheaditiveness.
I like that.
It's about sticking with it, especially when you feel like you're close but maybe losing steam. He uses that Shakespeare quote about the tide.
There is a tide in the affairs of men.
Yeah, seizing the moment.
Right. Don't miss your opportunity because you faltered right at the end. And he links this directly to self-reliance, trusting yourself to push through.
He tells a story about two generals, doesn't he?
Yes, both capable, but the one who kept pushing, even when things looked bad, won. The one who hesitated lost. It shows how determination can be the deciding factor.
Resilience, really.
Yeah.
Mental toughness. And then there's that very practical bit. Whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well.
Mm-hmm. Putting your full effort in, not just half doing things.
He contrasts this with just waiting for something to turn up.
Like poor Mr. Macabre again. Barnum warns that just waiting around usually leads to the poorhouse or jail. It's about action.
Right. He even quotes Cromwell and Muhammad, basically. Trust in providence, but
Keep your powder dry, or tie thy camel. You have to do your part.
faith in works. Okay, so you're working hard, maybe starting to see some success. What then?
Then it's about personal involvement, really understanding your own business, inside and out. Knowing the detail.
Yes, he uses the example of a Yankee tin peddler learning from a bad deal. And he quotes Rothschild. Be cautious and bold.
Cautious in planning.
Bold in execution. A great balance. But then he gives a warning.
Which is
Don't get distracted by outside operations.
leading.
Venturing too far outside your main business, your area of expertise. Investing in things you don't really understand just because they look shiny?
The diversification trap.
Kind of. He compares it to Samson losing his strength when his hair was cut. Spreading yourself too thin can weaken your core success.
So focus is key. Master your main thing first.
Right. He says, maybe invest moderately in other promising things if you must, but don't risk the wealth you've already built in your main business.
Solid advice. Don't bet the farm on something you don't fully grasp. Now, what about lending money or endorsing loans? That seems tricky.
He's very firm on this. He says basically don't endorse promissory notes for anyone, even family, unless you have solid security, real collateral.
Wow, even family.
Even family. He tells a whole detailed story about how that kind of thing can go wrong and ruin everyone involved.
Yikes. Sounds like he learned that the hard way, maybe.
Possibly. He also warns that easy access to borrowed money just tempts people into risky speculation. And he comes back to the idea that you only really understand the value of money if you've actually earned it yourself.
That makes sense. It feels different when you've worked hard for it. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Barnum was the master showman, the king of publicity. What does he say about advertising?
Well, unsurprisingly, he says it's essential. If you have something good, you have to let people know about it.
Tell the world.
It's that sow then reap idea again. You invest in advertising first, then you get the customers. But crucially, he warns, don't advertise junk. Only promote something worthwhile.
Integrity matters there too. Be honest in your promotions.
Absolutely. And he stresses consistency. He tells a story about placing a tiny, cheap ad that did nothing. You need sustained effort.
Right, people need to see things multiple times. He mentions a French writer's theory on that.
Yeah, how many times someone needs exposure before they even notice, let alone act? It takes repetition.
And then there's the famous Jen and the Hatter story.
Oh, classic Barnum-style promotion. Buying the first super expensive ticket to Jenny Lind's concert.
Just pure marketing genius. It wasn't about the concert itself, it was the buzz, the sheer audacity of it.
Exactly. It got everyone talking about Jen and the Hatter. Perfect, attention-grabbing advertising.
But advertising isn't everything. He also talks about how you treat people, right? Your customer.
Yes, hugely important. He calls politeness and kindness the best capital ever invested in business.
That's a great way to put it.
Treat people well, be civil, and they'll come back. They'll be loyal. He even tells a funny story about one of his museum ushers wanting to yell at a rude visitor.
And Barnum saying no, that's bad for business.
Right, because like begets alike. Be generous and kind to customers, and it generally comes back to you.
Build relationships, not just transactions. Okay, so beyond the pure mechanics of making money, he touches on some bigger principles too, like charity.
He does. He sees charity as both a duty and, interestingly, good policy. He quotes Solomon, "He that scattereth, yet increaseth."
So giving back can actually help you grow.
That's the idea. Though he specifies helping those who are trying to help themselves, not just indiscriminate handouts. He also advises being discreet. Don't blab about your profits or business secrets.
Keep some things close to the vest. But the absolute bedrock, the thing he keeps coming back to is integrity, isn't it?
Absolutely. He calls it more precious than diamonds or rubies. He slams the idea of getting rich dishonestly.
Yeah, he mentions some old miser's terrible advice.
And just tears it down. He insists that dishonesty will come out eventually, and it closes doors. It ruins your reputation.
Whereas honesty brings peace of mind, community trust.
And ultimately, better long-term prospects. He quotes Franklin again, "Honesty is the best policy. It's not just morally right, it's strategically smart."
Your reputation is your most valuable asset.
Yeah.
So wrapping things up, what's Barnum's final take on what real success looks like? Is it just about being rich?
Not entirely. He makes a distinction. Being truly successful involves using wealth well, benefiting others, making a positive impact.
Contributing something.
Right. He also talks about how wealth often cycles through families, rags to riches, back to rags, and the value of learning from others' mistakes.
And he encourages people to really aim high in whatever they choose to do, that line.
The top shelf is not crowded.
Yeah.
Or upstairs is not crowded.
Yeah.
Strive for excellence. Don't just settle for average.
And he also advises learning a useful trade, something practical, as sort of safety net.
Yes, because times change. Economies shift. Having a real skill is always valuable.
So it's a blend of ambition and pragmatism. He wants you to aim high, but keep your feet on the ground. Be systematic, be organized.
But not too rigid. He has those funny stories about the Astor House fire drill being too systematic and Pat the waiter taking orders with excessive, unhelpful precision. There's a balance.
Right. Don't let the system become the master. So if we boil it all down, what are the really enduring takeaways from these 19th century rules?
I think it's that core balance he strikes, between the hard work of earning and the discipline of saving. The absolute necessity of character, of integrity, and the need for constant effort, adapting as you go. The world looks different now, sure, but those fundamentals, they still feel incredibly solid.
They really do. It's amazing how practical and relevant much of this advice still feels today. So a final thought for you listening in. Which of these golden rules hits closest to home for you right now?
Yeah, what's one small thing you could maybe start doing based on these ideas?
Is the art of money getting, as Barnum called it, fundamentally different today? Or are these principles actually more critical than ever in our complex world? Something to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.